and welcome to 3 Inning Fan, the podcast with me, Kelley Franco. We are in the midst of an epic postseason, and as baseball fans, especially if you're a New York baseball fan, we have been ridiculously spoiled. The Mets have people using words like magical, team of destiny, comeback kids, and never say die. These are good words for the postseason. The Yankees fans are wondering if they can regain the swagger of dynasties past, but not so fast. Because Dodgers fans are saying the same thing. And not for nothing, but Guardians fans are like, hey, what about us? We belong, and we've waited longer than anyone. Right now, the Dodgers are 3 wins away from the World Series, and the Mets, Guardians, and Yankees are 4 wins away. Let's get on it. The NLCS, the Mets versus the Dodgers. The Mets and the Dodgers played last night, and the Dodgers came out swinging and pitching. They massacred the Mets 9-0. The Mets only mustered 3 hits all night. Dodgers starter Jack Flaherty was masterful, and the Mets just couldn't figure him out, getting only 2 hits off him in 7 innings. The Mets used Senga as an opener last night, and unfortunately, his solid NLDS appearance was not replicated. He took the loss after pitching just over 1 inning. The bullpen wasn't any better, and it didn't matter anyway since the Mets were completely befuddled by Flaherty. The Dodgers haven't allowed a run in 33 innings. They have scored 23 runs since they allowed a run. But you know what? I'd kind of rather the Mets lose in a huge blowout like they did last night than lose in some heartbreaker 3-2 and be mired in this shoulda, woulda, coulda. You know what? They can wash last night's loss right out of their hair, start over today, and if you're a Mets fan, you're just going to hope that the Dodgers spent all of their runs last night. The Mets-Dodgers is an historic matchup in several senses. The Dodgers broke the Mets' hearts in 1988. I know some of my listeners remember this. It was the 1988 League Championship Series. The Dodgers defeated them in 7 games, but the punctuation mark was Mike Scioscia's home run in the 9th inning of Game 4 off Dwight Gooden to tie the game. And the Dodgers eventually stole that game and the series. But the Mets beat the Dodgers in the 2015 NLDS, winning the decisive Game 5 at Chavez Ravine. And the Mets also beat the Dodgers in the 2006 NLDS. So there's enough to go around in this rivalry. Now, a lot of the podcasts that you're going to listen to or articles you're going to read are going to do this thing where they match up the teams position by position, who's got the better first baseman, who's got the better second baseman, and then at the end they kind of pronounce their prediction based on that. I'm not going to do that, okay? Because especially with the Mets this year, their strengths don't necessarily show up on paper. So we're going to look at it a different way. The Mets have the best record in baseball since May 30th, and the team hasn't just gotten good, okay? This is a saccharine word, and so I was hesitant to use it, but this is really the best word. The Mets have blossomed. It's the true meaning of the word team. You know, I think that most of us have played on a team at some point, even if it hasn't been since you were a kid. But you know what the concept of a team is, that when you're all operating well, the sum, what is it, that expression? You're more than the sum of your parts. That's the expression. And I think that that is exactly where the Mets are right now. So if you analyze these position-to-position matchups, it's going to look on paper like the Dodgers are going to prevail, but I actually think the Mets are going to prevail, even after last night. The Mets have mastered the late-inning comeback to the point of, come on. I mean, really, they cannot be counted out until the 27th out is recorded, no matter how far behind they are. It's kind of a period of magic, but the question is, how long will the magic last? Or if you're a Mets fan, maybe you're thinking, did the magic end last night? Look, The first issue we have to look at is the Dodgers pitching, and I think that this is actually a huge advantage for the Mets. So the Dodgers had great pitching last night, but who knows what's to come here because the Dodgers starting rotation has been decimated by injuries. The old adage is that good pitching beats good hitting every time, and if this is the case, I think the Mets will have an advantage starting with their pitching. The Dodgers have lost Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw, Tony Gonsolin, and others, basically a whole rotation to injury. And their rotation, honestly, I don't even think you can call it a rotation. But they have Jack Flaherty, who rocked last night, Walker Buehler, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So Yamamoto would have started last night in a perfect world, but he pitched Game 5 of the NLDS, so he's not available probably until Game 3 or 4. Today's game, Game 2, the Dodgers will do a bullpen game, and they beat the Padres with a bullpen game in Game 4 of the NLDS. But the point is, the Dodgers don't really have a traditional starting rotation. The Mets, on the other hand, have a solid to even really good starting rotation right now. And they have had 3 days since they beat the Phillies to reset it, not to mention rest their bullpen, although too bad some of that was wasted last night. Sen got bombs last night, okay? But the Mets have Sean Manaea going today. He's a legitimate ace, and honestly, he doesn't even seem to make mistakes anymore. And then they have Luis Severino. They could go with Quintana in Game 4, and then I think we'll likely see Peterson in Game 5 after his short relief appearance yesterday. The Mets get to use Manaea and Sevi all over again after Peterson in Game 5 if they need to, so this is a huge advantage. But if the Mets starters can't go deep, I don't have the level of confidence I would like to have in their bullpen. The Dodgers bullpen has had an up and down year, but they were great in the NLDS against the Padres. Now, remember, the Padres were held to 24 consecutive scoreless innings right before their fall, and then the Dodgers stretched that out by another 9 innings last night. With this Dodgers bullpen, you're going to want to watch Blake Trinan, Anthony Banda, Michael Kopech, and Evan Phillips. I mean, these guys are good. The whole bullpen only gave up 6 earned runs in the NLDS, and 3 of those were in the Padres' Game 2 blowout win. And the bullpen just continued right along in that vein last night, and so the Mets are going to have their work cut out for them against the bullpen. The Mets bullpen is like the girl with the curl poem from Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. When it's good, it's very good. But when it's bad, it's horrid. And yes, you just got a Longfellow quote in a baseball podcast because here at 3 Inning Fan LLC, we build the whole person. The Mets closer Edwin Diaz epitomizes this girl with the curl thing. When he's good, there's no one better. But when he's off, he's a walk machine, and it's painful to watch. So much depends on what Edwin we get, and there's just no way to know. Phil Maton and Ryan Stanek will continue to be his setup guys, and Dave Peterson, I was thinking, would be great for multi-inning efforts, but he wasn't great last night. Now we'll probably see him next, like I said, as a Game 5 starter. Adam Ottavino was left off the LCS roster. Offensively, there's going to be no better show than Shohei Ohtani versus Francisco Lindor. So Mets fans were, for a while, rooting for Lindor to get the NL MVP. That's not going to happen. But Lindor could still get the NLCS MVP. And wouldn't that be sweet and make Mets fans even happier? I was hoping Lindor could outshine Ohtani in this series. Ohtani actually had kind of a quiet division series after his Game 1 3-run homer. He went 2 for 15 in Games 2 through 5 of the National League Division Series. He struck out 3 times in Game 5. So going into last night, I thought, hey, maybe he'll stay quiet. Yeah, well, that didn't happen. He had 2 hits, a walk, scored twice, and he had an RBI. On the Mets, you'll want to watch not only Lindor, but Alonso. And Alonso and Lindor, let's face it, they have cemented their place in Mets postseason history. Alonso, Lindor, Mark Vientos, and Nimmo have all been hot. Not last night, of course, but they have been. Marte, Alvarez, and Taylor have not been hot. So we're going to hope that they can get the bats going. Jesse Winker is going to be in the DH slot a lot because he's a lefty, and the Dodgers starters Yamamoto, Flaherty, Buehler, and Landon Knack are all righties. The Dodgers are doing a bullpen game today, and the Mets have Manaea going. So the Dodgers bullpen is for real, so this isn't easy, but I'll take Manaea over, honestly, just about anyone these days. So, yeah, the Dodgers took the first win, but honestly, they had to do this at home. I mean, the conventional wisdom is if the visiting team can get a split in those first two games of these best-of-7 series and even a best-of-5, then they've done the right thing. So today's game will be huge. If the Mets can even it up, go back to Citi Field with a split, honestly, as a Mets fan, you're going to be sitting pretty. I think the Mets will win today, and I maintain my pick of the Mets in 6. Have you subscribed to the 3 Inning Fan podcast yet? Think of the long, cold, lonely winter you're going to have if you don't subscribe. You'll miss the free agents, the trades, and the managerial firings. You'll be walking to school uphill, both ways in the snow. Subscribe to this podcast, and I guarantee an easy winter warmed by a hot stove. See what I did there? And you should also be following me on the socials at 3 Inning Fan. Why? I don't really know. Maybe it's a bad thing. Whatever you do, do not follow me. Okay, Yankees versus Cleveland Guardians. It starts with Game 1 tonight at 7:38 p.m. Eastern Time. What do I want to see in this series? I want to see if Aaron Judge can become a Yankee legend by overcoming his lowly postseason performances to date. Can he flip the script and carry this team to a World Series? Judge had a subpar division series against the Royals, but he showed some signs of breaking out in Game 4. He's one of the greatest players of our generation. But if he wants to be a Yankee immortal, there's only one way to do that, and that is to have a Yankee postseason signature moment and carry the team to the World Series and bring home a ring. You know who did put the team on their back in the ALDS was Giancarlo Stanton. He was on fire, including a clutch home run in Game 3, not to mention a double and even a stolen base in that game. The memes on that stolen base were hilarious. Soto had an okay ALDS, 4 hits and 3 walks. There's room for improvement there. If Judge can get hot and Stanton can stay hot and Soto can be Soto, that's going to be a tough top of the order for any team to face. And the Yankees may have gotten past the Royals without a hot Judge and with only a warm Soto, but they're not going to win the World Series that way, and maybe not get to the World Series that way. So the Yankees took 4 out of 6 from the Guardians during the regular season, but guess what? Nobody cares once it gets to the postseason. The Yankees have now faced the Guardians roughly 1 million times in the postseason. Remember Jabba Chamberlain and the Midge Hatch? Oh, my God, what a nightmare. The Guardians' offensive stars that you want to watch out for are Steven Kwan, who is red hot and needs to be kept off base, and Jose Ramirez. But 2 guys alone are not going to be enough to overcome the Yankees. But I honestly, those guys are fierce, and I don't want to see either one of them up in a tough spot. Shortstop Brian Rocchio is going to be someone to watch if you're kind of looking for an under-the-radar guy. He had a totally ho-hum regular season, and then he went 6 for 16 in the ALDS, and he also had some sparkling defensive plays. The Guardians' offense as a whole was only average this regular season, and their strength was their bullpen. We'll talk about that in a second. The Yankees also have a solid starting rotation, which will go in this order: Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole, Clark Schmidt, Luis Gil. Rodon doesn't inspire confidence for me personally. He took the loss in Game 2 against the Royals in the ALDS. He came out throwing absolute fire in the first inning, and then he fell apart after that. Maybe he was too hyped up, and honestly, I can understand that. And maybe it's just one of those things that you have to have the postseason experience to get through it and to learn how to cope with it. He was 16-9 this season with a 3.96 ERA, and somehow I just feel like it was worse. I mean, the numbers don't tell the story of the agita I felt every time he pitched. But, I went back and I looked at how he pitched at the stadium this year, and he was 9-2 with a 3.11 ERA at home games this season. And that's probably part of the reason why Aaron Boone picked him for Game 1. Now, Game 2 is going to be reserved, obviously, for Garrett Cole. Clark Schmidt has a lower ERA than Rodon on the road than at home. I'm sorry, he's a lower ERA generally on the road than at home. But it was such a small sample size because he was hurt for some of the season, so I don't think we can ride or die on that. But at any rate, Boone will go with Schmidt for the road games in Cleveland. I said at the beginning of this season in a tweet that as Rodon goes, the Yankee rotation will go. And I'm going to stick with that for the postseason. He'll be starting Game 1 and probably Game 5, so he can make or break this series. Cole didn't have a Cy Young year, but he's still Garrett Cole, so he can dominate at any time. Luis Gil, he's going to be making a start in Game 4. He hasn't pitched since September 28th, so he's rested, I think is the word. The issue with Gil is that he pitched 29 innings in 2021, 4 innings in 2022, 0 innings last year, and 151 innings so far this season. So I think Boone just needed to give him a break. The question is, how will he emerge from this long, late summer's nap? Of note, Marcus Stroman was added to the Yankees ALCS roster, and if you're keeping track of these things, Rizzo was added to the roster too. Duke Ellis and Ben Rice came off, and there's still no Nestor Cortez. Now, the Guardians' rotation is still somewhat depleted from the Tigers series because it went 5 games. Ace Tanner Bybee won't be ready until Game 2. Veteran Alex Cobb will start tonight against Rodon. Matthew Boyd and Gavin Williams are their other options. Now let's talk about the Guardians bullpen because it is nothing short of awesome. If they get their bullpen a lead, watch out. The tables turn in their favor. The bullpen has the 4th lowest bullpen ERA by any team since 1995. They have the big 4. Here are the names: Cade Smith, Tim Herron, Hunter Gaddis, and Emmanuel Clase. Note that the Yankees gave Clase 1 of his 3 blown saves this season. But just like the starters, the bullpen had to go 5 games against the Tigers, and we're going to have to see if they pitch like they're tired. Smith, Clase, Gaddis, these guys all pitched 2 days ago. The Yankee bullpen was actually quite good in the ALDS, and it's not the Guardians' pen, but it's strong. Luke Weaver, Dream Weaver. I believe he can get me through the night. He saved all of those Yankee wins over the Royals. Clay Holmes was actually equally wonderful, holding the Royals to just 3 hits over 5 innings. He's no longer closing, which is good. Weaver is the closer, but Holmes is pitching like a closer. I am actually loving him as one of the setup guys for Weaver, and I'm starting to have this weird, unfamiliar feeling about the Yankee bullpen. I think it's confidence. So my pick, Yankees in 6. That means we're headed toward a Subway Series, if I'm correct, and that would be extremely stressful in my household in which I was born a Yankee fan and I married a Mets fan. Okay, let's not count the stress before it gets here. We'll be present and talk about what's good to eat while watching the ball game, our closer. So it's fall. And it's October baseball, baby, so get your chili on the stove. Chili comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes, and some people have an almost religious devotion to certain things that should or should not be in chili. Beans or no beans, serve it over spaghetti or with crackers or cornbread, yada, yada, yada. Everybody's got their thing with chili, okay? I have a few favorite chili recipes, two actually. One is a turkey chili that I start by using a base of bacon and, of course, bacon fat, which makes everything better. So you saute the bacon and then you get it nice and crispy, and then you cook your onions and your garlic and all that stuff right in the bacon fat. Oh my goodness. The flavor it imparts to the finished turkey chili is amazing. So that chili we eat straight up with cornbread. My beef chili I serve over spaghetti, and it's always a mini festival in our house because it is the only time in the pantheon of spaghetti eating that you are ever permitted to break the spaghetti before you cook it. So it's kind of a big deal, and we make a big, silly party out of it at our house. Time to break the spaghetti. Okay, so what are the constants in my chili recipes? My secret ingredients, and there are two. Okay, I have two secret ingredients. Now, the first secret ingredient you might know about. A lot of home cooks know to put this kind of open secret ingredient in their chili. And that open secret ingredient is chocolate. Unsweetened, of course, and sometimes I'll use cocoa powder. So that adds a wonderful kind of roundness to the chili. I use that in both the turkey and the beef. And the other top secret ingredient I've never revealed, not even to my husband, until now. The top secret ingredient is... There you go. You're going to make some great chili now. Thanks so much for joining my League Championship Series preview, and I'll see you next week for the World Series. Bye-bye.